Jonah Hale thought exhaustion was the worst thing that could follow him home from the hospital. He was wrong. The message arrived just after midnight, glowing against the cracked screen of his phone while he sat in his car outside his apartment, hands still smelling faintly of antiseptic. Cabin for the weekend. No work. No people. Just woods and silence. You in? The sender was Marcus Reed. Jonah hadn't seen him in years, not properly. They'd grown up together, broken bones together, learned how to be reckless together. Marcus always had a way of making escape sound harmless. Jonah didn't even read it twice before replying. I'm in. By Friday morning, the city was already behind them. Concrete gave way to frost-covered roads. Cell towers disappeared one by one. The radio lost signal somewhere near the state line, dissolving into static that Marcus never bothered to fix. The trees thickened as they climbed higher, tall and straight, packed so close together they felt intentional. As if they had been planted to keep something in, or out. The cabin sat near a frozen lake, half hidden behind pines, facing open water and nothing else. No neighboring lights. No tire tracks except their own. Jonah noticed that immediately. Inside, the place smelled like old wood and cold iron. One bedroom upstairs. One below. A living area with a stone fireplace that looked older than the structure itself. The generator outside thumped unevenly, like a tired heartbeat. Marcus laughed when Jonah checked the locks. Still paranoid? Habit, Jonah said. He didn't explain that hospitals teach you how fast things can go wrong when you assume safety. The first night passed quietly. Too quietly. The lake fog rolled in thick after sunset, swallowing sound. Jonah woke sometime before dawn with the strange sensation of being watched. The window beside the bed was open just enough to let in cold air. He sat up. Beyond the glass, through fog and shadow, something stood near the tree lean. Not moving. Not crouched. Standing. Jonah held his breath. His mind searched for logic, tree shadows, exhaustion, imagination, but none of it fit. The silhouette was too tall. Too still. Then it shifted. Not forward. Backward. Sliding into the trees as if it had never been there at all. Jonah shut the window and didn't sleep again. The next morning there were no tracks. No broken branches. No explanation. By afternoon, Jonah found the marks behind the cabin. Deep vertical grooves carved into the bark of an old pine. Too high. Too deliberate. Not claws. Not tools. Fingers. Marcus laughed it off when Jonah mentioned it, but the sound came out wrong. Forced. Thin. By the second night, they weren't alone anymore. A third vehicle arrived just before sunset. Jonah's sister, Claire, climbed out wearing a red jacket that stood out violently against the snow. Her boyfriend followed, already annoyed by the lack of signal. More people helped the fear fade. For a while. They hiked before dark. Found what was left of a deer arranged in the snow like it had been opened carefully and then abandoned. No head. No tracks leading away. That night, the generator failed. Then the scratching started. Slow. Measured. Circling the cabin. Testing. When the window shattered, Jonah understood something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't hunting. It was learning. The thing that pushed through the broken glass wasn't animal. Its limbs bent wrong. Its eyes weren't wild. They were focused. It withdrew only after blood was drawn, not fleeing, repositioning. Minutes later, Marcus went outside. Jonah never saw him alive again. By morning, only Jonah and Claire remained. And the woods were no longer hiding anything. They ran when they could. They hid when they had to. They learned too late that there was more than one. By the time rescue arrived, the truth was already decided for them. Bear attack. Accident. Unfortunate events. Jonah signed the papers without reading them. Weeks later, when he returned alone, the forest greeted him the same way it always had. Silent. Watching. Waiting. On a stone near the creek, freshly carved into rock, were 5 marks. 4 straight. 1 slanted. A signature. The engine stayed off for a long time. Because Jonah understood now. The silence wasn't empty. It was patient. The forest had changed by the time Jonah moved. It wasn't just the trees anymore. The shadows were longer, stretching unnaturally, shifting with a mind of their own. Every step he took felt monitored. The snow crunched underfoot, but there were other sounds, slower, heavier. Footfalls that didn't belong to him. Claire stumbled beside him. Her eyes wide, fixed on some invisible point. "Jonah, it's following," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but not with fear alone. It was disbelief. That primal understanding that what hunted them wasn't meant to be faced. He wanted to argue, to assure her it was their minds playing tricks. But he knew better. He had seen the eyes. The ones that didn't reflect moonlight. The ones that watched with patience. Then he saw the first one clearly. Tall. Broad. Limbs bent wrong. Head tilted. The snout elongated, jaw too wide, teeth glinting as it observed them from the tree line. And there was another. And another. 5 of them now, spread out in a semicircle, moving with intent, yet silent. No growls. No snarl. Only presence. Jonah froze. Claire grabbed his arm. "Run." They ran anyway. Boots sank in snow, branches tearing at clothing, the cold biting through layers. Behind them, the creatures didn't chase with speed. They flanked, methodical, herding. Like predators that knew geometry. Jonah spotted a fallen tree ahead. 10 feet wide, roots upturned and iced over. Impassable. They veered, snow lashing against their faces. And then, one stepped forward, breaking from the group, moving faster, closer, curiosity in every stride. Jonah's heart hammered. He pulled the hunting rifle from his pack, 3 bullets. Only 3. Each shot echoed through the silent forest like a warning. The first hit. The creature staggered, snarled, but didn't falter. Shot 2 struck the shoulder. It faltered briefly. Shot 3, empty. Click. No time to reload. The thing was on them. Jonah swung the axe with everything he had. The first contact made it recoil slightly. Its breath was hot, foul, but there was no pain in its eyes. Only observation. The creature twisted, limbs bending wrong, snapping branches underfoot. Jonah fought it as Claire scrambled behind a boulder. Then he saw it. Another one creeping from the tree, lean, massive, hunched. Its gaze met his. Not hunger. Not rage. Intelligence. Something old and deliberate. Jonah had never felt so small. So utterly insignificant. A shape moved ahead, what looked like a fire tower, half collapsed, barely standing. He made a decision. They had to reach it. Now. They pushed through the snow, limbs burning, lungs screaming. Behind them, the creatures followed, circling, patient. Every step toward the tower felt longer. Every tree seemed to bend closer. When they finally reached it, they found the door ajar. Inside. Dry wood, an old cot, a small stove, and most importantly, a shortwave radio. Jonah fumbled with the knobs, static crackling like a scream in his ears. He shouted into the mic, desperate, "Ranger post. Hayden Lake. 2 survivors. Need immediate extraction. Only static answered. The creatures didn't follow inside, at least not yet. But outside, the forest went dead silent. No wind. No snow. Just stillness. And then came the eyes. Peering from behind trees. 5. 10. More. Unblinking. Watching. Waiting. Jonah and Claire barricaded themselves, stacking wood, bracing the door with furniture, tying shutters with rope from the closet. Every creak of the cabin made them jump. Every shadow felt alive. Hours passed. Snow fell. The generator outside had long since died. Then came the scratching. Not random. Slow. Deliberate. Across the walls, around the cabin, circling like a ritual. Jonah held the axe, knuckles white, sweat freezing on his brow. Claire clutched a rusted pipe. The first window shattered. A black arm pushed through. Thick, fur matted with ice, bending wrong, unnatural. Jonah swung. Hit. Dark blood splashed. The arm withdrew. Another followed. Then the head. Skull canine but wrong, jaws too wide, eyes unhuman. Claire stabbed upward with the pipe, but it only made the creature shift its focus, fixating on her. It paused, tilted its head, as if noting her fear. Then the second impact came. From behind. The back wall splintered. Boards cracking, snow pouring in. Jonah pushed Claire behind him. The axe slammed into the invading limb, again and again. But the thing wasn't stopping. Not retreating. Only observing, testing, learning. A voice, low and guttural, warped by mimicry, whispered her name. "Claire, let me in." Jonah shouted, "Don't answer it." But the creatures were already inside, clawing, tearing, reshaping the room with each strike. He realized then, this wasn't just attack. It was pattern. Strategy. They knew exactly how to isolate, intimidate, hunt. Through the chaos, he caught a flash of movement outside. Headlights? Yes. The rangers had arrived. The creatures hesitated. Almost, respectfully. Or cautiously. And then, with fluid, terrifying speed, they vanished into the woods. Jonah sank to the floor. Claire sobbed. Silence fell, heavy and unnatural. When the rangers reached them, the official story became simple: bear attack. Accident. Tragedy. Nothing more. But Jonah knew. They were still out there. Watching. Waiting. Patient. Because the forest didn't forget. And neither did they. Jonah didn't sleep again that night. The cabin, or what remained of it, felt smaller, tighter, like the walls themselves were pressing inward. Claire sat huddled on the cot, knees drawn, eyes wide. Neither spoke. Words were useless now. Everything had been reduced to observation, reaction, and fear. Jonah pulled open a drawer and found old ranger logs, brittle with age. Dust rose as he flipped through the pages, each entry more disturbing than the last. October 1968. Missing hiker. 2 sets of tracks. One set vanished, the other continued into the forest. December 1975. Scratches on the fire tower. Ranger reports dismissed as bears. Notes in the margins: not a bear. Stood too tall. Saw its eyes. June 1983. Bones left in a circle, teeth marks irregular. New leaves and needles scattered over them. He felt the weight of decades pressing into the cabin. Whatever this was, it had been hunting humans here for more than 30 years. It wasn't a predator in the natural sense. It was a ritualist. It observed. It learned. It marked. Outside, snow fell silently. But Jonah knew they weren't alone. The tracks outside the cabin proved it. Clawed, bipedal, too large to ignore. And the occasional shadow between the trees suggested more than one. Much more. At midnight, it began. A quiet first. Just movement. A branch scraping a wall, snow sliding from the roof. Then deliberate knocks. The voice came, warped, guttural and twisted, imitating Claire. "Jonah, open the door." He swung the axe at the window. The glass bowed inward, then shattered. Limbs forced their way in, dark, massive, bent in ways no human should move. The smell of wet fur and cold blood filled the room. Jonah fought. Every swing of the axe drove one limb back, but others advanced. Claire stabbed blindly, screaming, her pipe connecting occasionally. The creatures didn't scream. They didn't flinch. Only observed, adjusted, calculated. One slammed into the back wall, bending the wood outward. Jonah braced, teeth clenched, ribs aching. The thing's chest pressed against him. It smelled of frost and decay. He swung the axe up, connecting deep into the neck. It yelped, not like pain, but recognition. Then retreated just enough to regroup. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. Time had no meaning. Then headlights appeared in the clearing. Real, human lights. Rangers, finally. The creatures paused. For the first time, Jonah saw hesitation. Their focus flicked to the vehicles, then back to him and Claire. And then, with fluidity that was terrifying in its precision, they melted back into the forest. Observers once more, not hunters. Two rangers burst in. Weapons drawn. Blood and snow coated the floor. One said, "Two survivors. Get them out." Jonah collapsed. Claire sobbed silently. They were alive. For now. The rangers didn't fire. Outside, at the edge of the trees, shapes lingered. 5 tall, hunched forms, unmoving. Watching. Waiting. Jonah had learned by now. They weren't done. They would never be done. The drive out was treacherous. Snow deep, forest pressing on all sides. One ranger cursed under his breath as the tires slipped over ice. Jonah saw shadows between the trees. Multiple forms, flanking the truck, moving with intelligence, hurting them. Another slam against the side of the vehicle nearly flipped it. Metal crumpled, screams cut short by impact. Jonah fought to stay conscious, pressing a bleeding arm against a gash. Claire whispered that she saw more eyes in the whiteout. He didn't respond. He couldn't. Survival demanded focus. By sheer force and luck, they reached open road. The creatures never gave chase past the tree line. Just lingered. Watching. Silent. Hospital. Medical care. Official statements. Bear attack. Car crash. Accident. Never mention the forest, the eyes, the claw marks, the scratches, the body of Marcus or the others. Weeks later, Jonah returned alone. Snow melted, trail visible again. Fire tower boarded up, warning tape fluttering in wind. Clearing empty. Truck wreckage gone. On a flat rock near the creek, freshly carved marks, 5 lines. 4 vertical. 1 diagonal. Jonah knelt. Hand hovered over the marks. They were fresh. Watching. Waiting. He didn't start the car for a long time. Just sat. Listening. The silence wasn't empty. It was alive. It remembered. And Jonah understood, finally, that some things aren't just legends. Some things are patience incarnate. Waiting for the next mistake. The next intrusion. the next step too close. He had survived. But only because the forest decided to spare him, for now. And the forest never forgets.